Welcome to the Land Your Bet Sports Betting Tutorial. To kick these off, I want to show you guys a very simple research angle that's going to help you find some hidden gems throughout the playoffs in the NBA. So today, we're going to go through how to find player matchup data. It highlights positive and negative matchups for individual players. All of this data is completely free to anyone who can access the internet, yet I rarely hear cappers online talking about who's guarding whom and which players have better matchups individually rather than just team defense versus a play. Now, there's no way around it. The best way to utilize matchup data is to follow the league and take the time to understand coaching tendencies as well. Of course, that's incredibly time consuming. So if you don't have the time to do that, you can go ahead and sub to the channel because I'll be doing that for you all playoffs long with sexy graphics like these to help you guys understand who is guarding whom. Very, very important in the playoffs. I'll also have detailed explanations of how I plan to use this data to help me. This matchup data isn't exactly an end-all be-all by any means. It's just a starting point to help point us in the right direction for the different bets that we may want to make that day. During the playoffs, though, when there's fewer games to handicap, this is well worth the time to go ahead and do a little bit more research to see who will be guarding whom, especially during the playoffs when matchups are so important as coaches kind of make changes from game to game. Now, I'm going to use an upcoming game with the Hawks and the Trailblazers, and this is a perfect example for our purposes, and I'm going to explain why in just 1 second. Here's what I came up with for the starting lineups for this game ahead of time. The two easy steps I used to get here were injury report and past matchups. Starting with injury reports, if you are not using the official NBA injury report, you're doing it wrong. This is the gospel. It's the end-all be-all and the ultimate truth of who is and who is not playing, as it's the teams sending these updates to the league directly and the league pushing them out to us. Now, they only update about once an hour on the half hour. So if you want faster updates than that, probably makes sense to follow NBA Underdog on Twitter. Nobody has done it better that I've found to give you immediate updates on any kind of news in the NBA and especially injuries, because those who can act on the injury news the fastest are usually going to get the best numbers. As far as matchups go, if you have a past matchup between these two teams in the season that you're in, that's going to be the best use for you to find who's going to guard who in this upcoming game. You do need to make sure that everyone who is in the past game that you're looking at is going to be playing in this upcoming game as well. Anytime that players are out that weren't in before, etc., you're really looking at a situation that can mess up any of the matchups you have projected. Things get rearranged. Maybe a guy who was on the bench in the last game is now starting and he's a better defender. So you have to really take that into consideration, that just because you're looking at a past matchup, if all the players who are available tonight are not available back then that means it's probably not as useful. So how did I find past matchups for the Hawks and Blazers? NBA.com actually has everything you need in the box scores. Jumping into NBA.com to show you guys exactly how we're doing this, we need to know when the last time the Blazers and the Hawks played each other. A simple Google search does the trick. I already found out that these two teams played on November the 17th this season. So I'm going to go to games so I can get all of the box scores here and then just choose the date for November the 17th. And I'm just going to go back here to the correct month, pull up the 17th, and then find the game and go into the box score. So we've got Hawks. They lost 110 to 114. That came up in that game was in the trail in Portland, I should say. And here we have the box score, right? So now we see everything, just all the simple traditional stats that you have here for each player. Great. But I want to find the matchup stuff, right? So I'm going to go to matchups. I'm going to change traditional, go all the way down to matchups. And this is going to give me the option to see who guarded whom. I can either select offensive player or defensive player and see who was guarding whom or who was guarded by a guy. So I want to find out for Trae Young, who was guarding him. I'm going to put him on offense. And then I'm going to come down here and see that I can filter this by the minutes so I can see who guarded him the most minutes. Far and away, clearly, it was Toumani Camara, right? 8 minutes and 30 seconds of offensive possession. He was the primary defender on Trae Young when the Hawks had the ball. So now we know this guy who's normally like a small forward, sometimes power forward, has played, even small ball 5, by the way, has been guarding the smallest, shiftiest, fastest, quickest dude on the other team, at least quickest on the other team, and doing a great job. Like, really good job, right? 6 points in the 8.5 minutes that Trae was guarded by him. I would say that's really good. 2 for 8 from the field, forced 4 turnovers. Like, there's no reason to think he's not going to keep guarding Trae Young. Thing is, they're going to try to find ways to get other guys onto Trae, obviously. And that's why you see a couple other guys here. Either Tumani was off court, Scoot was guarding him, or perhaps they switched defenders because Trae Young was tired of having Tumani guard him and tried to get a screen so that they would have to switch. And Tumani just fights through all this stuff and guards him. But as far as the other matchups go, because we can see here who was playing, there's going to be some guys that were not in this game. So for instance, we're not going to see Larry Nance. Clint Capella's not starting anymore. Jalen Johnson's out for the season, right? There's not going to be probably any Keaton Wallace. Garrison Matthews has been out for the season. DeAndre Hunter's not even on the team anymore. So it's going to look a little bit different. But at the very least, this is a really solid example of how you can't just assume that, like, because Trae is playing point guard, that the point guard on the other team, say Scoot, is going to be the primary defender. You have to go actually into the box scores to see the matchups, to know who was guarding, which coach decided, I want Tumani to guard Trae Young, not the maybe more the more traditional way of doing it that you would think, which is a guard on a guard and a forward on a forward. Doesn't have to be that way in the NBA. It's all about best defensive matchups. And now we can use this Tumani Kamara info to help us at least look at a bet and maybe see if it's worth playing. So this site is called propsmadness.com, and this is linked in the description of the video. For those of you who have not seen me use propsmadness.com yet, it is a one-stop shop for all the things you need here in sports betting, for the hoops especially. Let's start with what I'm looking at here. So let's go to Tumani Kamara. Because I know that Tumani Kamara is going to be guarding Trae Young, I have a sneaky suspicion that his rebounds are a good underplay. Why is that, right? Well, it's basically a system play. It's really simple. When you have Tumani Kamara guarding small, shifty point guards on the other team who play really far away from the basket, he's not really in good position to get rebounds. So one of the ways I can use this Props Madness to help me prove that point is go to head-to-head, right? H2H. That's what I can select here under these filters that they give me. And I can look at how he played last game against this team. They played on the 17th of November. The Blazers won by 4. He played 35 minutes, only had 3 points on 1 for 8 shooting. But I want to look at the rebounds, because my thought process is he's going to be guarding Trae Young. He's going to be far from the basket, and he's not going to be in position to go get the rebounds a lot, because he's forced to guard the guy and focus on guarding the guy who has the ball in his hands almost the whole time that the Hawks are on offense. As a result, he only had 9 rebound chances in this last game, and rebound chances are as important as anything to tell us if a guy is going to, how many rebounds we should project for a guy. When you see rebound chances, you usually assume about 50 to 55% of the rebound chances turn into rebounds for most guys, right? Tumani happens to be at about a 51% rebound success rate on all of the rebound chances that he's gotten. But when he gets 9 rebound chances, you expect him to get 4 to 5 boards. That's the fair projection, right? Anything else would be a slight outlier, as he's not getting 60% of his rebounds and turning them into rebound chances and turning them into rebounds. So because he's guarded Trae Young so frequently or so consistently in this game, only had 9 rebound chances. And if you tell me that he's going to get 9 rebound chances once again, I'm very happy to go under on his 5.5 rebounds. Looks like there's a couple other people here. As I look at the odds on across a couple of different sports books, there seem to be people probably in a similar level of thinking as me, as the under is minus 138 on FanDuel, meaning FanDuel really thinks this is more likely to go under at 5.5 than over. So I think that actually helps us a little bit. The books agree with us. The market seems to agree with us. And the last thing I want to show you here is you can look at the game log for our guy and look at the last bunch of games. There's a clear pattern here between him going under rebounds and going over rebounds, right? Against the Knicks, I went back and looked at that matchup. He's guarding Cat. He's not guarding a point guard. So he's actually guarding a center who's playing closer to the basket, which puts him in pretty good position to get rebounds. Against the Kings, guarding DeMar DeRozan and Zach LaVine, 2 guys playing out on the perimeter, he goes under and only has 4 rebound chances in 34 minutes in that game. Similar concept here with the Cavs. He's guarding Darius Garland the whole time. Garland spends all of his time out on the three-point line and far away from the basket as the primary ball handler, especially in that game where Donnie Mitchell wasn't even available. Now it's really Darius Garland's offense, and that led him to guarding Darius Garland. One more example. The Celtics here. He goes over. He's not guarding a primary ball handler. Like, sometimes he was on Tatum, sometimes he was on Brown, sometimes he was on whomever, right? He was just all over the place in that game. So if you look at the matchup in that one, you can assume that when he's playing the Celtics, he's a little bit less focused on guarding one guy and shutting down one guy who's playing far away from the basket, like Trae Young, like Darius Garland, like DeMar DeRozan, etc. Right? So when we get these situations where he's playing these teams that he needs to guard a really good player, take Ja Morant, for instance, 8 to 9 rebound chances, that's not enough for him to go over. We got to love unders in that case as a result. So remember, we're calling this a system play. Anytime that you see Tumani Kamara going up against a team where you can probably project that he is going to guard the team's best ball handler and point guard, who's going to be far away from the basket, those are good times to go under for Tumani, right? And this is all thanks to the matchup data. If I didn't have that hint that Tumani is guarding a guy who like Trae Young, then I don't necessarily have the look in mind to go under on his rebounds. But I hope you all got something out of this episode here talking about matchup data in the NBA. Going to be coming back with plenty more stuff like this to help us make our playoff bets. Playoff basketball, a little bit different than the regular season. So we got to up our game, right? And tweak our strategies just a little bit from regular season to playoffs so that we can be really successful in the playoffs once again. So hope to see y'all in the VIP or at least in the free section of the Discord. And until I do, happy betting. For those of you paying attention, go ahead and sign up now and you get 70% off your first month using the code MATCHUP. So if you want to get in for a really, really nice discount there, go ahead and use code MATCHUP and get in here for the playoffs. When we get to the beginning parts of the season and we don't have matchups between teams like we do now towards the end of the season, this changes a little bit. But because we're going into the playoffs at this point, and because we know we have a lot of data of teams already having played each other this season, we can go ahead and just assume that we're going to have you can just assume that the data that we have from this season is good enough to utilize for the playoff matchups as well. By understanding individual matchups on the court, we learn a number of things, including which players have easy or hard one-on-one matchups for scoring, assisting, and rebounding, where players will be standing on defense during half-court sets, and which players may see an uptick or a downtick in their minutes due to mismatches, and that one is even less of a duh.